Your doctor may have never shared with you why you do not want to take your daily medications with coffee. The problem is we have tens of millions of people waking up every single day and taking their pharmaceuticals, their medications, with their morning cup of coffee. This can be absolutely detrimental to their health and, unfortunately, not get them the drug-related improvements in their symptoms that they have been looking for. So we're going to set aside whether you should be taking pharmaceuticals or not for chronic health conditions, and instead talk about the top 10 medications that you want to be careful with taking with coffee. Because coffee does affect the absorption of many medications. That means it can amplify it, right? So it can make it greater by changing the pH of the stomach acid and actually stimulating the nervous system and liver enzymes, or it can blunt the effects because it can slow absorption, change stomach pH, bind to certain medications, and it's not just the caffeine, it is the polyphenols, the tannins, and the acids like chlorogenic acid in coffee that do this. So I have to give you the disclaimer, I can't provide any medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical cures, medical diagnosis, but I'm going to give you the top 10 drugs to be careful of if you are taking medications and consuming it with coffee. So I want to skip and really cut to the chase, but all of this can be alleviated. You can still enjoy your coffee, but what we need to do is these medications need to be taken 30 to 60 minutes before your food and coffee, typically just with water. Let's dive right in. The first one is this thyroid medication. I mean, think about it. How many people are taking their levothyroxine, their Synthroid with coffee when they wake up? They've been told they should take it before food, but many people are never told that they should not take it with coffee. It can actually reduce the absorption of the thyroid hormone, the levothyroxine, by 30 to 60%. Imagine that. Literally, you've never been told that take this medication, but not with coffee, and you're taking it, but you're only getting 50% of its benefit, 50% of its action. So what we need to do, stop that coffee with that levothyroxine. You're going to wait 30 to 60 minutes. And again, really earn on the side of more like 60 minutes. So always, these things are typically better taken on an empty stomach unless prescribed by your physician or your pharmacist, and they will tell you to take it with food if it's meant to be taken with food. All right, the second one is Adderall and ADHD stimulants. So when you combine these stimulants with caffeine, it absolutely overstimulates the nervous system. We run a test called the stress mood and metabolism test. We can see people on these medications, which are essentially acting like speed and increasing cortisol levels throughout the day, oftentimes to double, triple the levels of cortisol that they should be. And if we run the mind and mood neurotransmitter test, we can see what it's doing to norepinephrine, not just for adults, but also for children as well. So you have to be really careful having any caffeinated drink, not just coffee, with these medications. The third one is antidepressants, SSRIs, TCAs, etc. So coffee can increase the side effects such as anxiety or restlessness. And it's really more the caffeine than the coffee itself. So if you think about it, if you're trying to calm the nervous system with the medication, but coffee or caffeine is excitatory, so think again, energy drink or coffee, the body doesn't know whether it's 1 foot on the brake or 1 foot on the gas. And in this case, it's a foot on the brake and gas at once. And the car is just revving and spinning in place. Not good for the nervous system and ultimately can really damage the neurotransmitters as well as the cortisol production and your thyroid. So not good. Certain antidepressants also slow caffeine metabolism, which means it can stay in your system longer. The fourth one is blood pressure medication. We have to be really careful here. When you're taking blood pressure medication, you are trying to calm your nervous system. I mean, that's really what you're trying to do. Some of them are balancing your sodium to potassium. Some are basically diuretics. Some are calming the calcium, magnesium, essentially channels inside of the body. But whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to calm the body. You're trying to vasodilate instead of vasoconstrict, make everything tight and tense. If you're consuming coffee and caffeine, especially with a medication, this can be quite dangerous. Anyone with high blood pressure needs to be really careful with consuming caffeine. I mean, honestly, got to really try to lower that, start to move towards decaf. Really important, particularly relevant with beta blockers as well. All right, here's a big one. And again, most patients are not told this. Osteoporosis or osteoporotic-based medications. This, consuming it with coffee can reduce the absorption by 50%. So that's massive. Again, and then you go in and you say, oh, the medication's not working or it's not working as it's supposed to. Well, it's reduced by 50%. So they then double the dosage for a lot of these, right? They double the dosage of thyroid medication. They double the dosage of, no, we don't want to do that. All we want to do is separate that away from your coffee. Really important on that. All right, the sixth one is iron. This is huge. How many people are taking their iron in the morning, but they're also taking it with a caffeinated beverage? Coffee, but specifically the polyphenols, that's why it's not just the caffeine, can bind to iron. And it can reduce the absorption, get this, by 40 to 80%. Essentially, when you consume coffee, and this would actually be decaf as well, with iron, you are rendering the iron essentially useless, almost useless. So we're going to take our iron away from our coffee and caffeine and all that. Typically, you would take it at lunch or dinner away from your coffee and caffeine. And I would even say tea as well. And for iron, you would take it away from dairy typically too. And if you really want to absorb your iron, you'll take it with vitamin C. Just a little side tip. All right, the next one is pseudoephedrine-based products. It's the main ingredient in a lot of allergy and or cold-based medications. When you consume a caffeinated beverage with these medications, especially on an empty stomach, it can increase heart rate, blood pressure, jitteriness, anxiety, really stresses the nervous system, so be careful there. This one is also kind of goes along with the pseudoephedrine, goes along with the ADHD, goes along with the allergies, and that is asthma. So caffeine is very chemically similar to asthma-based medication. It's essentially a stimulant that allows for a HPA axis stimulation. So hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis stimulates more norepinephrine in the body, one of the adrenal-based hormones or neurotransmitters, and helps to produce more cortisol as a secondary based effect. When consuming coffee along with asthma-based medication, especially theophylline, what can happen is it can create nausea, heart palpitations, nervousness, anxieties, the same jitteriness as well. So just be careful of that. You know, teenagers, they start to use coffee as well, and you want to be careful if they're using an inhaler or asthma-based medication. All right, certain antibiotics. So Cipro is one of those. Consuming it with caffeine can actually, consuming the antibiotic with caffeine can slow the caffeine absorption, so that could last longer, maybe keeping you up at night. It makes those effects much, much stronger. And as I said, it can actually lead to insomnia. All right, the last one I wanted to share with you is diabetes-based medication. So diabetics want to be careful not to consume caffeine since, especially if taken with medication, it could increase blood sugar and reduce insulin sensitivity. It can increase blood sugar levels even for individuals without diabetes. You want to make sure that, well, if you want to test it for yourself, you can use an at-home glucometer, or you can use a continuous glucose monitor to see what happens when you consume caffeine on an empty stomach. But you just want to be careful and aware of that, especially if you're using insulin-based medications. All right, so here's the easiest thing. These medications often will say on the bottle, take with food or take away from food, but away from food almost always means away from coffee, caffeine, black tea, etc. So most of these, again, not medical advice, simply should be taken 60 minutes before food and coffee, usually just with water. Certain medications need to be taken 2 to 3 hours away from coffee. I know that that's a lot, but those are the ones that typically exacerbate the effects of caffeine that I spoke about earlier. Most just 60 minutes, but if you want to kind of err on the side of caution, let's say that you wake up at 6 a.m. right away, you could take your specific medications. Again, you're going to go by what it says on your medication bottle, and then you maybe don't have your coffee until 8 o'clock when you're ready to start your day. At least something to think about, but I want to share with you is that coffee isn't necessarily the problem. It's simply how and when it's consumed. And then my opinion would be everything on this list is able to be overcome. I want to repeat that. Every single one of these conditions, blood pressure, low thyroid, ADHD, osteoporosis, asthma, whatever it might be, they're all able to be overcome. Maybe taking antibiotics in a very special circumstance. I totally get it. Life-saving circumstance. You do what you have to do, right? But the other ones, look for the underlying root cause. Find out what your deficiencies are, what your toxicities are, and begin to work the process. You'll be so thankful that you did, because you'll learn so much in the process and you'll bring your body back to equilibrium. Hopefully today's show was helpful. All the show notes will be at stephencabral.com/3707, just for a simple list of all of those medications here today. And of course, share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care, everybody. I'll talk with you tomorrow on a brand new Cabral Concept.